This is TWiT.
iPad Pro. Now, this is where they flexed. This was, wow. The rumor was, Alex is very excited. This is excited, Alex. The rumor was that they would use mini LED display. They kind of downplayed it. I think that industry analysts and we enthusiasts know what a mini LED is, but nobody else does. So Apple didn't say now with a mini LED display. They talked more about what it can do, but it became clear that it was a mini LED display instead of what we thought, the A14X, which would be essentially an M1. They just said no, we're putting the M1 in this iPad Pro.
Yeah,
interesting. That gives you some capabilities. That gives you some things you've never seen on an iPad. For instance, a Thunderbolt 3 port, which can do not only fast data transfers and charging, but video. So you can now run an external display.
6K external display.
Wow.
It runs.
Well, and I wonder whether you can do video out, but with that kind of connection, you can do video in as well. So you can capture
okay,
video.
Alex, now you've really got me excited.
Sweet mystery of life.
I mean, it works in my head. Like I don't know. They didn't say anything about.
Well,
it
could be a recording device because you can go up to 2 terabytes now. So there's a lot of storage.
Right.
And here was the shocker: they didn't even say it; they just showed it in a slide. Up to 16 gigs of RAM.
Yeah,
on the 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte models.
I mean, it's a computer. I mean, it's a touch screen computer at this point.
Essentially, your choice now is which operating system you want. Do you want iPad OS or Mac OS? Because otherwise, it's pretty much the same hardware, right? With touch. Now we know why they haven't put touch on Mac OS.
Yeah, well, no, I still think that's a dogmatic thing, but I have to say that in the middle of this presentation, I was in my banking app. I have a special account just for like Mad Money. I was moving money putting them on the plane. I was like, suit up, warming up in the bullpen. It's $2,000 of Andy's money. I had a window open just in case they created they started taking pre-orders immediately, because Apple has always tried to make the statement that, oh well, no, this isn't just a computer, it's an iPad, trying to make the statement that they don't think of this as a tablet that just is for reading books and for doing light computing. This is a computer in its own right. It does real desktop type things, but only an exciting new form factor. But this is the first time they've brought hardware that really just absolutely thundered home that point. That's as it happens, just like my usual, the computer that replaced my iPad Pro as my, hey, I want something ultra slim and ultra light because I'm just going out for a few hours or just to toss my bag, has been this Google Pixel Book, and it's a few years old, and it chose next week for all the keys on the left side of the keyboard to die. So I was actually already sort of contemplating, okay, so what do I get as the new ultralight thing? And there's so many points in this presentation, particularly the high-speed Thunderbolt, so high-speed devices to be connected externally. The addition last year of the ability to use trackpads and mouses with it. And just the speed and capacity of this thing. Also, I'll say the upgrades to the camera, the LiDAR. I really want LiDAR on an Apple device, and I was actually thinking about, well, gee, if LiDAR is going to be this interesting for doing AR and 3D, maybe I should buy a new iPhone just to get it. And they added that to this thing too. It really does see the iPad Pro was never cheap. But it's about the same amount of money that I spent on my first generation iPad Pro 12.9 inch. And I really think I can justify it. More than anything else, it's gotten me excited about, yep, I will still accept some of the downsides of having an iPad and not a device that simply responds to a USB device by saying, oh, great, here's a USB device. Please have access to the file system and stuff like that. The software that they were presenting for this, and also, again, that wonderful, just the mission statement of, oh, no, we just put an M1 in there. It will never run Mac software. Believe it. I'm sure that 80% of the engineering beside this was let's make sure that nobody can even possibly contemplate this. But I really am excited about the future of iPad Pro with this device. I think it was just a demonstration, and I'm still kind of full of the chemicals from the Andy want shiny new thing experience, and so I'm glad I got 10 days to sort of cool off and think about it. But this is a really, really shot across the bow of every device that costs about $1,000 in Windows that tries to be hip and cool.
I think the RAM is telling, because up to now iPads have historically had scant RAM, and the excuse was, well, iPad OS doesn't need it. 4 gigs was a lot. Then I think the most recent iPad Pro had 6 gigs, maybe 8. But to jump all of a sudden, you can get it with 16 gigs. What does that mean? What does that say?
This is, I mean, it's also the price of a computer. Loaded up, it's $2,400.
Oh,
like it is a real, like it when you put 2
my
terabytes
God.
of 16 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of drive space and a Wi-Fi and cellular, you're looking at $2,400.
You could put 5G in it now too, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and
with millimeter wave.
holy cow.
I have to admit, I was like, I don't think that would work out in that boat. But anyway, I'm going
to go for $1,200 or $1,300. I'm not spending $2,500 on anything that I
Alex,
can't ride into town.
You and I have both been on that Sausalito ferry. I don't care if it's got 5G. You ain't doing anything on that ferry but look at the sky and the sea and enjoy the ride.
You know, I probably spend about half my time on my iPad at this point, and I can see this increasing that to 75 or 80% of my time on an iPad.
Yeah.
And
so
there's a handful of
remember,
applications
it's iPad OS, so you're using the iPad OS apps. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you paid $2,400 for this top of the line iPad Pro before you got a keyboard. I should point out. Add a keyboard.
Right. No, it'll be a solid 20
with taxes up to $3,000. I mean, that's crazy.
But that'll be my laptop. Like that'll be my
But can it be is the question? Because always it's been a compromise to use an iPad as a laptop.
Yeah, the question is that I have looking at all this is does iPad OS matter?
Yeah.
Like I mean, could you theoretically reboot it at some? You're now
could you put
M1,
Mac OS on it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like could you just put Mac OS on it and run it? Which we won't know until the next announcement. But but what was left in my head was you could just now it's sharing all the same hardware. You could just let it run Mac OS. If they did that, then I'm done. Like literally, I would just be.
Somebody in our Discord pre-show said, "What about Xcode?" Now it certainly could run Xcode.
Yeah.
Yep. I anticipate sometime in the next few months, maybe at WWDC.
I mean, you already have the Mac M1 Mac Minis running iPad apps,
right?
So this is like they're so close together right now.
It would probably be fairly simple to port Xcode to it. I bet you they'll announce that at WWDC. Right. Especially if you could put a bigger screen, because no one wants to code even on a 12-inch screen. Nobody wants to code on that. But if you could put a big screen on that, maybe.
Yeah. But the larger point, I've spoken a lot out of being giddy about this, but the point that Apple still has to make sure that they make is that this is, as we're saying, this can be as powerful as $1,000, $1,500 Windows laptop, but this does things. We're also implicitly saying that this can be as powerful as a $1,500 MacBook Air. What we're saying though is that this does things that a standard configuration desktop OS-based device can't. And I've always found that in terms of focused computing, the iPad does deliver a better experience, an easier experience than even the most advanced window managers that I have on the Mac or any other device. As a device that I'm going to take it out of my bag, I'm going to get some stuff done, not even while sitting at a table on the commuter rail. I'm going to be, even if I'm just in one of those three-seat benches, it's going to work well for me. And your excellent point about the keyboard being Magic Keyboard being a few $100 more, but you don't have to buy that one. And also the big deal is that I can sync my $1,300, $1,400 into the either 256 or 512. I still don't know whether my dignity is retained by spending $1,400 for the 512 gig version, or whether I should just slink back to 256 gigabyte land. But the thing is, you can buy that and then a year from now buy the really, really expensive keyboard trackpad combo, or don't, because you found something that has an even better style keyboard and trackpad that works better for you.
I wonder if it'll fit my existing Magic. I bet it will. It doesn't look like it's changed in form at all.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the cameras, because as soon as I started watching this whole thing, I thought, man, we got to talk to Alex. They're really pushing this as a creator tool, like film your next movie on the iPad. Are the cameras that much better? It looks like they're now at a parity with the iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Do they have the wide?
They do. They added a wide.
Yeah. Okay, so I missed that. So they have all three lenses, because I thought it only had.
It only has two lenses, so that's a good question. I guess it has the wide and the normal, and not the 2x.
Yeah, so it's probably not quite the same as the iPhone, but
12
again,
megapixel
16
wide, though, they said.
Well, and what's interesting there is, so that's a 4K, essentially a 4K image, and then they're panning and scanning inside of it, which is what the Portal does, for instance. Is so what you're seeing is it kind of doing that follow along.
Portal does
so
it.
makes
the Google Nest Home Max does that.
Right. So that, and the thing is that with that front facing, just the face ID, that is still a simplistic, LiDAR. It's probably going to be far more accurate, than the Portal. As far as if you're pretty close to it and you're walking around, it's probably going to have a really good idea where you are. Better than just image analyzation. So I think that's going to be a really interesting way to kind of interact with folks. So that's a pretty. It's pretty slick. It's 1600 nit peak, but I mean they put the XDR display into the iPad. Like that is.
Is the XDR mini LED? No.
I think that the array. I think the monitor is pretty close to the same thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
a mini LED chip makes a big difference. You couldn't do HDR in an LCD screen without it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I don't know if it's possible or if it'll work, but my guess is that you'll be able to use Sidecar in Resolve, so that while you're working, I can push it to my iPad and look at how it looks in Vision or PQ or whatever. So you'll actually use that as a monitor that may not be 100% accurate, but for $2,500 for me to be able to attach it to a computer that I'm working in Resolve and being able to look over at the HDR display, pretty nifty.
Yeah.
No, that was another factor. I whenever I'm contemplating a purchase like this, sometimes I break it down into $1,300 cost. It sounds like a lot, but how much value would I attach to being able to use it as an external display for my Macs? And then you say, okay, well, actually, that would be about $200, $300 worth of value to me. And how much for having a camera, a very good camera that has a LiDAR sensor on it? That's probably worth another $150, because there are things I can't do with my current phones, my current cameras. So I might be talking myself into it, but there's a lot of protein in this device. I think it's good.
Yeah, $3,000 worth of protein.
Again, I'm a cheapskate. I'm using a lamp from my grandmother's house as a lighting source for streaming. Do you think I'm going to be spending $3,000 for this?
Yeah,
but
yeah, you might want to.
As someone who has a need specifically for, again, something ultra slim, ultra light that I can carry all. Like I've checked out of my hotel. My flight home isn't for another 7 hours, and I don't want to check my bag with my computer in it, so I have to carry this around New York City all day long. This is a very, very viable thing for me. It might even be the first one that I can actually take with me as a all-in-one streaming solution. The worst part of any trip that involves a Tuesday, for instance, is that, oh man, if I really want this to look non-crappy, I am going to have to take my MacBook with me, and I am going to have to take these other things with me, because even the Pixelbook doesn't seem to do it for me. I'm one of those certain people for whom this is a very, very appealing thing. I can make another $500 or $600 if it's between an $800 Windows laptop or this one. I maybe can't get back the inconvenience of having a $900 Windows laptop for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years in this role.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Wi-Fi 6, 5G. I wish I could get 5G. I can get some 5G, but not the really fast 5G here. This is the ultra-wide camera, Alex, 122-degree field of view, 12 megapixels. That's the one where they can pan and zoom.
Yep. No headphone jack. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, that's the one thing I really miss on these iPad Pros.
That's stupid.
They don't need the space. Come on, guys.
You're just being jerks.
Here's the zoom that you were talking about. So it recognizes somebody else has come into the picture. So it follows him over to the stove, and then his daughter comes in, and it zooms back over to her, or actually zooms out to...
It's reframing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And what's funny is that they have it in front of I'm testing a portal. I literally just ordered a portal that's going to be showing up here in a minute, or sometime today. And we're testing it to use for the cooking stuff that we're doing, the cooking shows that we're working on.
That's what
where
exactly
that
what it's
wide
made
camera
for.
follow the cook around while you're working, and it's a pretty slick when it works. It's pretty slick.
Now,
And it's really hard to do.
You've been the AR guy on this show. Does this any breakthroughs in AR? It's just the LiDAR is the same as the last year's iPad.
Well, the M1 chip. So now the difference now is that you'll be able to put an enormous number of polygons into the AR. So the amount of detail that they can add will be pretty stunning. I won't know until I test it, but my guess is you could probably support 20 or 30 million polygons, inside of and that just means that you can tour more interesting things. That motor that they showed is pretty complex model. So there's a lot more you can do. And the LiDAR, the little AR spaces is kind of cool. So I have a feeling that you'll see a lot of people play with that. That's kind of like the super advanced version of virtual spaces. So one of the virtual backgrounds in Zoom and all these other things is kind of a horrible experience. So the virtual spaces of the kids dancing is really cool. But imagine it if they apply it, and I don't know whether they will or not, but if you turned it around or applied it or whatever to it, you could build like a real 3D background, for things. That's the background for whatever your direct address is, or so on and so forth. So it's pretty interesting. I think that the LiDAR will be interesting. I think that the fact that it can handle a lot more polygons, a lot more textures, a lot more because of the M1 chip, you could do some really advanced AR with it, that much more advanced than what you can do on the current hardware.
The fact that this is the AR is built into clips means that it's going to expose a lot of normal people, TikTok creators and stuff, to this capability. I think that's very important for Apple's long-term planning.
Well, if you can imagine, if suddenly it becomes a big rage in TikTok, then talk about keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly.
If there's suddenly a whole bunch of this AR stuff that you can only do with an iPad,
you're going to buy it.
You're going to sell a lot of
iPads. Yeah.
Yep.
And they are mentioning right now on the front page, thank you, Scooter X, for a limited time, buy an iPad with Wi-Fi plus cellular from Apple, and you'll get up to $200 back when you activate it with AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon. So, of course, because they're going to get you every month for the rest of your life. 12-megapixel wide camera on the back, 10-megapixel ultra-wide on the back, the LiDAR scanner. So it's 2 cameras, wide and ultra-wide. No telephoto.